hot take.
You're a Claude guy, right?
Dude, I don't understand. I'll go back in and ask ChatGPT to do some certain things. I'm getting to the point where I'm like duding ChatGPT. I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? I didn't even, what are
Do you
you
say
giving me?
dude to it?
I say dude, because it's this week I said, hey, can you let Sam Altman know that his platform has taken a major downturn?
They get reported back.
ChatGPT said, I can't directly ping the CEO of OpenAI, but thank you for the information, whatever. M dash, we're doing our best. But man, I don't, Claude has just overtaken ChatGPT. Like I'm even plugging Gemini in instead. For me, building decks and presentations, I don't know if you use any of that stuff, but I used to use Gamma.app. I don't use that anymore because you can put a beautiful skill together within ChatGPT, or excuse me, Claude, that produces a really interesting outcome that's consistent every single time. So I don't know what people are doing right now, but ChatGPT is, this is in dental tech, but damn, way downhill. All right, Clayton, here we are again. I don't know what episode number this is. I should keep up with that. Do you know what episode? You know what it is?
7, 8,
I mean, they've
9,
been
11.
they're amazing. I know that much. So here we are, another episode of Off Script. Yeah, let's talk, man. It's good to catch up. It's been a minute. It's summer. You know, families are definitely a priority at this point. You guys got a new little vacation, right?
Yeah, we got away to the Outer Banks. We got some stuff coming up, getting back to our old hometown of Washington D.C. in a couple weeks for my son's birthday. So yeah, man, we're keeping it moving too, and it's definitely summer. There's a lot of out of office up too. A lot of
For
PTO
sure.
being taken as people should, and well deserved. How about you?
We don't really have firm plans. I mean, we did the wedding thing, and that honeymoon was like 3 weeks or two
That little
weeks.
wedding thing.
Yeah, the little wedding thing. Executed that flawlessly. Solid experience. Honeymoon was, I wouldn't say flawlessly executed, but I'm not going to put that on the internet right now. But we had a great time. It was absolutely fun.
Hey, look, I'm not going to go into my honeymoon either, but I think if anybody's being honest, their honeymoon is probably not flawlessly executed, but good time in hindsight.
It was exactly as it should be, and I'm excited at the way it went. So let's
There
just
you
say
go.
that. And I
There
wish
you go.
everybody has a vacation with their partner that we had together. So it was solid.
Awesome.
Yeah. As we were chatting beforehand, I think you look at the year, right? We're in July. It's halfway over. And I think an interesting topic we chatted about that makes sense to get out there is just where we are in this industry as a whole. You know, that industry being tech, DSOs, dental practices, groups, however you want to say it. Like things have been predictable, and in the same way, not so predictable. Maybe in general, some thoughts where your brain goes on that topic. And I've certainly got some as well. But just in general, what are you seeing in the space? Is there surprises? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's hard to imagine, isn't it? I mean, it's we're at a mid-year review here, coming into July and rapidly approaching the end of the year. So it's been an interesting year. I think some parts of it are around where we thought we might end up here, coming into the middle and the back end of the year, and other parts of it are not. I mean, I'm always the eternal optimist, but I definitely thought just the dental economy as a whole would be, kind of continue what I felt last year was some pretty good momentum and kind of continue kind of that upward trajectory. It seems like, I don't know if, necessarily you want to say we've declined a ton, but definitely stagnated a little bit more. I thought some of these tools that everybody was so excited about at the end of last year would have a little more impact, especially on the tech AI side, your expertise side. So maybe you can speak to that a little bit. We've obviously everybody's been focused on same store growth and talked a little bit about getting your house in order, just some of these pieces that people are putting in place on their business and the impact that they expect them to have. We can still have a couple months left in the year here, but I don't know. I was really looking for one of those kind of explosive
Yeah.
years in dentistry, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it too, and just especially the piece about tech and kind of the promise of what some of these platforms can do, and if you feel like they're meeting that promise.
Yeah, not to name drop, but I'm going to do it. Kaleo and I had a conversation. There's like a webinar
That's
coming
the
out.
name drop.
Yeah, I'll do this too with HS1. They did a good job of just kind of letting us go. And I had the distinct pleasure of interviewing him, and he decided to give me shit a bunch, which makes sense.
That's what he does.
I asked him specifically around like where we're at right now, and his take was neutral.
Hmm.
Like we're just neutral, and that has to do with a lot of factors. banks owning DSOs, right? There's been a lot of, like, at DCA, right? A lot of stuff happened that made headlines. I think M&A is happening for key organizations that are running really tight ships, whereas the other ones are not necessarily in acquisition mode. I know some smaller groups that are going to market and they're not having like the outcome in the early discussions around that. From a technology perspective, a lot of these solutions, especially the earlier stage, my sense is they're having a little bit of success, but they're not having, I think, what I guess would be like their investors are not thrilled. It's just my guess here from some experience. So some of the solutions that are out there, my prediction early in the year, I think we might have even talked about this on the pod, was that some of these companies are going to really run out of money potentially if they don't have some real revenue upside. And they're going to start to really understand that right now because burn is real inside these organizations. I've experienced it in some of the companies that I've supported from a consulting perspective. And Dykema is going to be an interesting look at where these companies are, like who's really acquiring DSO business. And I think that's my take there. I mean, I've got more thoughts on it, like a lot of to do with like the build versus buy stuff we've talked about internally, like the fact that Claude is doing so much inside an organization that I think there's a lot of companies that believe they can build the stuff. But yeah, overall, I would agree with Kaleo's take. It's neutral across the DSO conversations I'm having. And there's some companies that are doing relatively well on the vendor side. But I would say I'd be interested to see like everybody's, like, how are they doing to their goal as a vendor? My guess is it's probably a mixed bag.
Yeah, it kind of goes with what I'm saying, right? With kind of being stagnant a little bit. I think that's right in line with what Kaleo's saying there. I would love to see kind of to goal of the vendors as well. It just feels like they're in that, they're just really feeling that crunch. I mean, they're a little bit beholden to all of these different groups, and the groups continue to grow. They continue to push back on them for additional pricing, support, resources, and there's this kind of race to the bottom it's been there for a while. I'd love to get a more in-depth look at kind of like a vendor health report and see what that would actually look like.
There seems to be a lack of clarity on the vendor side specifically about how to position products effectively inside the DSO conversations. You can be a large org or a brand new, I just founded this company and I have $3 million in the bank with a good idea. And I think there's some questions around how do I have conversations? What are their needs inside the organization? And in what areas are they going to try and do this themselves versus like utilize my tech? The standardization and consolidation, literally buzzwords. I don't want to sound like AI here. There's a shift in the market, M dash. But the reality is like consolidation and standardization inside DSOs specifically is truly like a conversation that's happening every day. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that.
That'll be the day we just start speaking like Claude or Chat.
We should do an entire podcast that has M dash, the shift in the market. It's not this.
Yeah, that's how you'll know we went fully Avatar on this thing. Yeah, I mean, it's still as strong as ever, right? Those buzzwords are still as strong as ever, and for good reason because of all the things you just said. There's a little bit of activity in the market. We just saw, like, did you see like the Lone Peak news
11.
come out?
Which one? The 11 locations, or?
I believe the financing.
Oh no.
That they just partnered with Steel City, I believe. Check that one out. 170 million term loan, revolver, delayed draw. It looks like I actually got that from Sina Amiri. I like his updates there. If you guys don't follow him, he's a good follow on LinkedIn. Yeah, so there's activity happening, right? It's just a little fewer and farther between. And otherwise, everyone else is still feels like they're playing catch up. It's kind of what I mean with stagnant. It just feels like we're kind of on this hamster wheel running just as an industry as a whole, right? I mean, just running at a pace, trying to feel like we're getting somewhere, feel like we're adding tools, feel like we're adding pieces, and we're just not pushing the ball up the court as much as I think people wanted to see, and certainly as much as I wanted to see. I just thought we'd make more progress as an industry this year. You alluded to Dykema. It's going to be really interesting this year to see what those conversations are all about, because it's always interesting there, right? But
Yeah.
I think this year especially, there's a lot to discuss. And if last year kind of AI was this buzzword and there was a full day and AI workshops and all these pieces, I think that buzz has subsided a little bit. Now those conversations are going to turn to the reality of what things can and can't do for the business and the experiences people have had with them. So it's that type of gathering is always interesting in the conversations that are
Oh
had,
yeah.
but this year especially.
Yeah, I didn't see this. So this was literally yesterday.
Yeah,
75. Yeah, I knew they were bringing on 11 additional locations, and this is has a lot to do with why.
yeah.
That pediatric space, I think, is one that is really attractive in the dental world. Like I know D4C is doing well. Ray and that team at Lone Peak, Chris, there's I think VP of technology, VP of IT. Christina is like a great CFO. Like they have a good internal
Strong
organization.
COO too, Eduardo over
Yeah,
there, DCA alum, actually great guy,
yeah.
great leader. So yeah, I agreed.
I had a conversation with Chris. Hopefully, that doesn't mind me saying, like, just in general, they have a really good strategy around adopting technology from evaluation to implementation. He's really structured how that conversation looks, and they've got really good key metrics they track. Like, I don't know how it goes, but they seem like the gold standard as far as like putting together a good plan of figuring out like what's interesting and how to evaluate it and then internally adopt it and get buy-in. But that pediatric space is interesting. I think there's a lot of good folks in that world that are really performing well inside the DSO.
Good time to do it. I mean, you look at 75 locations. Just speaking on Lone Peak, and I don't know their internal business like that. I don't want to speak like I do or overstate anything, but I just know at that size, I mean, good time to do it, right? Good time to see the future, where things are going, put the pieces in place that are going to let you be able to build towards that. And it does seem like they're positioned well. And I don't think you garner that type of attention that we just saw with that press release if you don't. Not in today's world.
Yeah.
It's where you see some others kind of really struggle to have that kind of investment made.
The way things were moving early on last year into this year with these AI solutions, didn't you think there'd be more case studies and stories that are in the market
Sure
about like
did.
this complete like overhaul of teams and we're seeing double digit increase and I don't know, like better. It just doesn't seem like they're delivering on the things that we thought we would see delivery on inside these
Yeah.
DSOs from those platforms. Is that a take from your perspective?
I've been reading a lot in general about kind of the future of all this. When you talk about like socioeconomic impact of AI and where we thought things would go and predictions for the future and valuations put on some of these AI companies and trying to gauge what they're going to be capable of. And obviously, everybody wants to know how valuable they actually are. Kind of the same thing we're seeing shake down in dental with a lot of the dental applications and platforms that we have. We've talked about it before. It was very easy to slap AI on anything in the past, and it's buzzy and people jump at it and the demo might be good enough. And we talked about what was coming this year, and this is something that we predicted for this year, that it was time to the rubber was meeting the road. This was
Yeah.
results have to speak for themselves. I don't think people can get away with kind of pontificating and stating that this is what should happen or what they should see or what others have seen. You kind of have to have some real proof behind it. And if you can't bring that to the table, it's hard to get traction with any new business. And then if it's not happening on the business you do get, then I think people are recognizing it more quickly. So that's part of it. I mean, there was this promise, there was this idea that some of these solutions were going to do so many things. Maybe it was overhyped, maybe it was giving too much into AI and what it's capable of, but it doesn't seem like we're seeing it in too many sectors. There's some really promising stuff out there, but
Yeah.
overall, it seemed to have fallen a little flat.
I think one thing I didn't predict was the amount of individuals that thought that they would be able to do things internally themselves. Individuals in corporations, 50, 60, 70 location groups, not relying on external partners as much because the ability to build interesting things is so much easier than we ever thought it would be. Like that part
Quickly.
I didn't see happening that quickly is like
It
at the
happened
top
very quickly.
at the touch of the button, I can build out like the ability to do research and have like an actionable HTML platform that can be published and utilized like within, a few hours.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these solutions I have seen disappear, and I've known this because I've gotten some kind of insider information. It's like, we just built that over a weekend because we thought it was a good idea, and they legit did it. Now, when you think about that, you got to think, oh man, you got the Gary Salmons of the world that are cruising the black web to see what information is out there to be bought inside the healthcare and DSO world, and they're just like sitting there licking their chops as these companies start to implement things that could put them at risk, which we've seen. There was a report out about 1-800-Dentist. I don't know if you saw that. Like, information got hacked with credit cards. Yeah, that was on by Dr. Bicuspid. I saw they got hacked. You got to make sure that you're watching your back. And I think a lot of like companies like yours with a Joel and Ron over at SGA, some of the team over at MB2 that I know, like the larger scale organizations are going to have all that security tightened up. But some of these smaller ones, like I had dinner with some folks that had like a 11 location group. I don't know if I said this before, but he literally had like one of their sons is like building out an AI solution for them. It's like, dude, okay, that's cool.
Be careful.
But I'm not going to say who because I don't want
That's the next step, right? Like build versus buy, and then it's like, okay, build comes with its own potential pitfalls as well. It is funny though to hear you say that, like these guys, they just built it in the weekend because they thought it'd be cool, and I think that could be the start of a company a couple years ago. But there's more people in house that have worked with these tools more, yourself included. You just said it. I don't know if you would have spoken that sentence a year ago, right? 6 months ago.
No.
Probably not. So there's more people like you, like I, that are kind of progressing along this timeline, this bell curve that maybe others had accessed or had just really dug in a year and a half. Maybe they were just earlier, right? The early adopters of the technology. They saw that this could do this. They saw that nobody else was seeing that it could do this, and they kind of build these companies. I don't want to demean what people have built because there's a lot of great companies out there, but they put a brand on it and a logo on it, and it's not that complicated in hindsight. What looked relatively complicated to build a year ago, a year and a half ago, almost looks like a chatbot now. So
yeah,
there's a lot of people that have raised their level of acumen.
And I'll tell you, ChatGPT sucks. Like, hot take.
You're a Claude guy, right?
Dude, I don't understand. I'll go back in and ask ChatGPT to do some certain things. I'm getting to the point where I'm like duding ChatGPT. I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? I didn't even. What do you
say, dude, to it?
I do. I say, dude, because it's this week. I said, hey, can you let Sam Altman know that his platform has taken a major downturn?
They get reported back.
ChatGPT said, I can't directly ping the CEO of OpenAI, but thank you for the information, whatever. We're doing our best. But man, I don't. Claude has just overtaken ChatGPT. Like, I'm even plugging Gemini in instead. For me, building decks and presentations, I don't know if you use any of that stuff, but I used to use Gamma.app. I don't use that anymore because you can put a beautiful skill together within Claude that produces a really interesting outcome that's consistent every single time. So I don't know what people are doing right now, but ChatGPT this is in dental tech, but damn, way downhill. I don't know.
The fact that we're even talking about it, I think this wasn't really a conversation 6 months to a year ago either. Claude was there, right? But
yeah.
Chat just came on the scene and everybody, that was their primary go-to. And now we know the difference and what they're best at. So again, it kind of all comes back to everybody within these organizations has had exposure to all of these different tools now. It's not just like the tech AI people that were on the forefront of this and kind of saw some things coming. So, where does that lead us? That's why I think Dykema is going to be so interesting in these conversations, because there's going to be a lot of chatter around what people can do. And I wonder how the vendors are going to respond, especially some that are, kind of staking their entire company to potentially something that could be replicable with somebody with a little bit of AI know-how.
Yeah, and I wonder how much desperation is going to exist, because you and I, being on both. Well, you're not on the vendor side. I guess I'm considered more on the vendor side, but I like to think of myself not. But
we don't know what side you're on.
Yeah, I'm on both sides. That's the way it is. But yeah, I mean, I put, and you comment on this post on LinkedIn that, thoughts on attending Dykema. The first one was be interested and not interesting. Like, if you're desperate, you're just going to throw up trying to be interesting, versus asking about like specific needs inside the business, being more inquisitive and interested in what they're doing, because ultimately they might not have priorities that are focused on your technology. But if you have enough cash in the bank and you're sustainable, that if you approach that conversation in a way of being interested, they'll think of you when that is a priority in their business, right? But instead of trying to force a priority, a round peg in a square hole for some of these DSOs, that just comes across the wrong way. There's going to be a lot of that happens next week. A couple others I mentioned too are like be human on the vendor side and like say
Yeah,
hello
I
to
like that.
people, have fun and stay sharp. The stay sharp part was like let's not get hammered, like everybody, like
Yeah, yeah, I
let's not
caught
get
that.
crazy. But that was the stay sharp, is like stay focused on what the goal and the outcome is. And I don't know if you remember some of your suggestions and your comments. Do you? I can read them to
Yeah,
you.
I mean, I think exactly like you said, like diagnose the problem. It kind of goes to that be interesting, but like really diagnose, listen to what people are saying to you, because even as we talk about build versus buy, even as we talk about that, people are going to start to build and they're going to realize they can't build it, at least maybe even not to the capabilities that your product may have on the vendor side. So even if you lose out initially, and down the line you might get a call and say, hey, I really remember that conversation, it was memorable, we've tried this, we haven't been able to get it moving for whatever reason. I think I talked about like don't confuse like the traffic with the pipeline. I think that goes back to human too, like to have meaningful conversations. Those meaningful conversations are going to mean more. Positioning yourself as a partner, as an ally, as an expert is going to mean more than just kind of blanketing out, scanning everybody's badge as you walk by them. Really viewing it as kind of the beginning of the relationship. It's not a chance to maybe close a new relationship down. On the DSO side, it's just pure chaos. I mean, you got to protect the calendar. You got to make sure that, I think a big mistake is like missing some of the content. It's not, we know at any conference, right? Dykema probably does better than most at having real impactful content. But at any conference, if you sat through every single piece of content, be impossible, right? You can't be in every room, but you sat through everything, it's not gonna be groundbreaking, but there are gonna be pieces. And if you can make sure to hold your schedule for those sessions that you do think are gonna be, the real impactful sessions, people that you really want to hear from. But yeah, the taking notes piece is all kind of part of that, because those things go by in a blur. Who you talked to, what you said, what was said to you, you're going to want to circle back on it.
I like the last one you have here about industry counterparts and sharing best practices.
Oh yeah.
I remember probably is it 3 years ago, I was chatting with Scotty Hudsmith, and he's the CEO over at Specialized Dental Partners, and
Hmm. Very
he
sharp.
mentioned that. Yeah, very sharp. I just enjoy talking to him. He's really generous with his time. And he said to me that there's a certain select group of individuals inside the DSO landscape that do an incredible job of sharing that type of information, because as the ships rise, everybody rises together in a lot of cases. And that was telling to me. And I think there's no reason why we need to live in this world of not sharing ideas. I'm in the world of believing that you can tell people like, hey, this is what I've done to be successful, or these are things I would suggest you giving a shot. But ultimately, it still comes down to execution. So you can have the greatest ideas in the world. That's why certain entrepreneurs are more successful than others. It might not have been the best idea in the world, but man, are they great executioners. And when it comes down to the idea, the execution part is the hard part.
Yeah.
So sharing ideas amongst each other, even on the vendor side of things, like share stuff with each other. Like it's okay. If we do well, everybody does well.
Yeah.
What's the size of this? I don't know. I should know this, but it's a massive industry. There are so many dentists. There are so many opportunities for people to be successful. Like share ideas. It's all right.
Yeah. The abundance mentality, right? I mean, it's been talked about. Everybody's read books about it, and blue water, red water, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. I think especially among the DSOs, I think Scotty's right. Scotty, he's in rare air. I mean, he's like a legend. So he
Oh
gets
yeah.
to have conversations with other kind of legends in our industry, and they've been through the fire. And you do see those guys stick together. I would love to see more availability and conversations from some of those guys. I think they know how kind of revered they are in the industry. I hope they know, but maybe even have opportunities for not necessarily people to tell them that for their own ego, but be in the same rooms and be able to ask questions. I think could go a really long way. Then I've seen that at Dykema before. You definitely see them on stage, sometimes surrounded by a team or a bubble, or they kind of are moving in a large pack. It can be hard to get a word in edgewise, but yeah, I mean, If not them, then there's a lot of other good operators there, tech leaders there, marketing people from a bunch of different groups there that
Yeah.
are just as high level too. So you really can't go wrong. It's almost everywhere you go, you're turning around and bumping into somebody else that you could probably find some sort of common ground and have a great conversation with.
I did mention in this same post about attending Dykema from the DSO operations side of things, as they're looking at technology, asking questions with some of these vendors. You wrote about this, I think, in
Yeah.
GDN, that what is currently deployed, what is on the roadmap, is a question that they need to be able to answer
I
honestly.
thought you saying their financing, lightly. You said it like lightly positioned, maybe how they're financed too. I thought was really interesting because
Uh,
you'd like to know that information as well. Are you going to be here in 6 months?
Yeah, I had a smaller group that I'm working with, and I asked he's a doctor-led group, and I asked him specifically because he's looking at some solutions that are AI native, and he isn't asking that question. He didn't ask that question because that information is important. I think you can ask it nicely. You don't need to say exactly to the penny, but I think the founder of that business, whoever is running it, needs to be able to answer that question. Because you don't want to roll something out across 5 locations, 10 locations. I mean, shit, even one location that isn't going to be there. Now you're really affecting your team, your patients, the whole thing.
I was about to say starting from scratch is worse than starting from scratch. It's like starting from scratch is what you started from when you implemented that. Now you're starting from negative perception, loss of trust, having to undo something on a business. And we don't ever talk about the undoing of pilots and the undoing of platforms on a business and what that takes and what it looks like and the skeletons and remnants that are left of some of this stuff once you pull back. But that's a pertinent question. And then I think I put on there too if you can talk about when an implementation failed, why it failed, what happened, speak to it. It doesn't always have to be the rosy. No salesperson's going to lead with that. But if the question gets asked, it's a valid question, right? Like nothing goes flawlessly every time. If we're going to really dig in on if this can work or not, people want to know how you overcame challenges too. Question
Yeah.
I like to ask of when you either face these types of challenges or if we have questions on certain areas of this, what happens if this doesn't go well? How do you plan to fix it? How do you plan to fix it with us? And then if something just outright failed or a part of this outright failed, what's the reaction?
Yeah, and the last thing, I know we have some listeners in the DSO side of things, is just say no, man.
Yeah.
Man, women, I don't mean that, in any way of just say no. Like just say no if it's not something that's on the roadmap to look at, if it's not something you're considering, if you have something internally that works really well and you're not going to rip it out. I think it's okay just to say no so that some of these vendors that are trying to build businesses just know to maybe come back in 6 months and say, hey, is this still a no?
Yeah.
What I do find, which is great about Dykema, is that everybody talks to everybody. Like they're like on the vendor side, I was like, say hello to people. Like the reason I'll just give an example, like name drop again, like Rezwan over to Imagine. Like him and I, like we see each other, we connect. It's like a quick little 5-minute conversation to catch up. I learned so much from him. And the only reason I have that relationship is like 3 years ago, I just walked up to him. I said hello, introduced myself and said, hey man, I really love what you're doing over there. You seem like a great leader. Marla's, who's a friend of mine, she works for you guys and she loves it over there. I just gave him a compliment that was genuine with no agenda. And what did that do? It resulted in me having a resource inside this business where I can ask questions and get interesting insights on it. I respect people that do that. And I think if you're on the vendor side, I encourage you just to walk up to people and faces you recognize. And then also on the DSO side, just it's okay to say no.
And don't sell, like you said. No agenda. Walk up with no agenda. And if you don't want to say no, just be transparent. I mean, if the answer isn't no, if it is a not right now, because you can do some damage, especially these early stage companies. I mean, if people start putting things in their forecasts that aren't real, or they put them at a high level of potential close, and it's actually a 5% chance, then you really can throw some people's trajectories off. Maybe they don't have the opportunity to sharpen their pitch or sharpen if they think everything just went well. So yeah, certainly feel that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know we like to keep these tight, but the question around forecast that you said I have is maybe it's for another episode, but I think that's interesting for vendors to understand, right? As they're pitching their products to provide a certain outcome, like there are budgets that you're up against, right? That you're getting money from certain areas, but you also potentially could be forecasting based upon like outcomes that these individuals and companies are saying could happen, right?
Yeah, I have a feeling that might have something to do with the timing of the meeting in general. It wouldn't surprise me. I've never asked Brian specifically, or they thought of everything, right? So there's something in the timing. But if part of that timing wasn't July, it's not long before conversations start to be had for planning for the next year. Get on that radar, start to have those conversations and potentially be included in what those plans look like for 2027. It's a well-positioned meeting in the time of the year to be able to do that without kind of overly rushing. If there's true interest, the meetings will get had and things will be evaluated, and you can potentially at least have something in place to head into the next year.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never thought about that. I always wondered, why the heck is this thing?
I haven't either until right now.
Like, why is this in the summer, right? This is ridiculous. Nobody's doing much, right? But that makes complete sense, because as you look to make changes, I had a conversation earlier today. I was like, hey, we have an offsite in September. You got to understand through July and August where your focus is. And now that you have this meeting, you could potentially get insights from the meeting in the middle of the summer that impacts September. So October decisions. That's good stuff, man. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if that was an angle that was played on the timing. I'd love to hear that in general, just kind of why the timing, especially when you see so many earlier in the year type of meetings.
Yeah, I'll miss you, man. Maybe I'll live stream from.
Please do. Give me a little FaceTime.
Yeah, it'll be a bummer not to have you, but I like to drop those updates on LinkedIn, so I'll give you an extra special update. And of course, shout out to Steve Craig. We always like to do that because he's probably one of the only ones that listen to the end. I don't know. We appreciate you, brother.
We'll see if he makes it to the end of this one. I guess we'll know by the shout out.
We will. All right, man. Until next time, let's sign off and talk to you soon. Looking forward to.
All right, brother. Good chatting with you.
You too.